Shabbat Shalom. Well, I've got some passages here out of Scripture that, I think need to be addressed because we're starting to see a decline in a lot of these things as far as people's behavior and doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're doing things they're not supposed to be doing and doing things that they are doing things they are not supposed to be doing and not doing things they are supposed to be doing. So the first one I'm going to read is out of Matthew 18. It's going to be verses 21 through 35. And this one right here it's a hard one for a lot of people. It really is. But there's a caveat to it at the end, and there's some different passages that I've added into this. You're going to initially think that, what does this have to do with this topic? Trust me, it does. So this is titled Forgiveness. It says here, Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Yeshua said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 77 times. For this reason, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his slaves. When he had begun to settle them, one who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. But since he did not have the means to repay, his Lord commanded him to be sold along with his wife, children, and all that he had, and repayment be made. So the slave fell on the ground and prostrated himself before him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will repay you everything. And the Lord of the slave felt compassion and released him and forgave him the debt. But that slave went out and found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 denarii. And he seized him and began to choke him, saying, Pay back what you owe. So his fellow slave fell on the ground and began to plead with him, saying, Have patience with me, I will repay you. But he was unwilling and went and threw him in prison until he should pay back what was owed. So when his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved and came and reported to their Lord all that had happened. Then summoning him, his Lord said to him, You wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you? And his Lord, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he should repay all that was owed to him. My heavenly Father will also do the same to you if each of you does not forgive his brother from your heart. See, right there at the very, very end of this, it's one thing to say it, speak it through our lips. But you also have to forgive that person from your heart. It has to be genuine forgiveness, not just, I forgive you, and be done with it. No, it's not going to work that way. Sorry, no. So, you've got to learn to be able to forgive people regardless of what they have done to you. Regardless. I've heard people out there utter the phrases saying, I will never forgive you. And there have been people that have told me that they have forgiven people for some very horrific things that have happened to them in their own personal lives. things that it would be very difficult for most people to forgive somebody. I'm not going to elaborate on any of that. So, I'm sure if somebody thinks about it, you can probably come up with about 20 different scenarios for that being a situation. Okay, so moving on here to another parable, the laborer in the vineyards. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. When he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius for the day, he sent them into the vineyard, and he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to those he said, "You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you." And so they went. Again he went out about the 6th hour and the 9th hour and did the same thing. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, Why have you been standing here idle all day long?" They said to him, "Because no one hired us." He said to them, "You go into the vineyard. You go into the vineyard too." Now, when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last group to the first group." When those hired about the 11th hour came, each one received a denarius. When those hired first came, they thought that they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they grumbled at the landowner, saying, "These last men have worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden and the scorching heat of the day." But he answered and he said to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go. But I wish to give to this last man, the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with what is my own? Or is your eye envious because I am generous?" So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. So, this is something I want you to think about for a second. This is, a question that's been debated and talked about over the years. As far as deathbed confessions, or somebody say they're in hospice care, people ask, we've done all these things, we've tried to live the right way, follow the scriptures, do as Yeshua said, and then people say, well, how is it possible for these people to be able to get into heaven when they haven't lived their lives according rightly? And the best example I can give to you out of this particular parable, which to me is what this is also referencing, is that you have, up until your last breath, you still have a chance. But once your life ends and you die, time's up. There is no more chance. It's just like with the thief that was crucified next to Yeshua. He said, "Remember me when you get in your kingdom." And the man was dying right there next to Yeshua, and he was told that he would be in paradise with him that very day. So, if you have friends now, by me saying this, that does not mean because once you have learned the truth, and you backpedal on that, that is a mistake you don't want to make, because you don't know when your last day actually will be. You could go and get hit by a truck 5 minutes after listening to what I'm talking about here. So Don't even get any wise or crazy ideas on that front. That would be real. That would not be wise. This I'm talking about is referring to somebody who may have heard the message before, but really hadn't thought about it, and then finally you're able to get to that person at the very end. That's what I'm trying to get at. Not for somebody to sit here and deliberately reject the gospel and that's it. And then, there are going to be some cases where people will do this stuff. Let's say, please come to my Jesus, Yeshua, come into my heart, etc., and so forth. But it's not actually coming from the heart. They're in desperation because they know they're about to die. They know it. But it's not coming from the heart. It's lip service. Again, lip service. So, moving on. Something's going on outside, all kinds of sirens. Guess another car crash happened. Okay, parable of the two sons. But what do you think? A man had two sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in the vineyard. And he answered, I will not. But afterward he regretted it and went. The man came to the second and said the same thing. And he answered, I will, sir. But he did not go. Now which of the two did the will of his father? They said, the first. Yeshua said to him, Truly I say to you that tax collectors and prostitutes will get into the kingdom of heaven before you do. For John came to you in the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him, but the tax collectors and the prostitutes did believe him, and you seeing this did not even feel remorse after so as to believe in him. And this is something I've heard before, and it's very fitting for this particular parable. And what is actually the meaning of this parable? There are those that say yes to Elohim, but they do not do his will. Just like it says here, came to the first son did the will of the father. Initially he said no, but then he thought about it and he went and did it. He did his father's will. He did what was asked of him. The second one said, I will, sir, but then he did not go. So the second one did not do the will of his father. But the second one said yes, but did nothing. So again, I say, there are those that say yes to Elohim, to Yahweh, but they do not do his will. Okay, so this is where the whole part about the lip service, these people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. So we're going to get into a little more detail on this here out of Matthew 23, verses 25 through 28. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of a cup and of the dish, but inside they are full of robbery and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the dish, so that the outside of it may become clean also. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, which on the outside appear beautiful, but within they are full of dead men's bones and all corruption. So you too outwardly appear righteous to men, but inwardly you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Remind you of the whole thing of the wolves in sheep's clothing. That if you're going to profess your life to Yeshua, you don't just simply say it from your mouth. It needs to come from your heart first. Because, as it is written in the book of Jeremiah, I Yahweh, search the heart and test the mind, to give every man according to his will, according to his deeds and his doings. So this is going into the book of Mark, and they're getting into a discussion about breaking bread with unwashed hands. So, let's see here. After he called the crowd to him again, he began saying to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside the man which can defile him if it goes into him, but the things which proceed out of the man are what defile the man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear." When he had left the crowd and entered into the house, his disciples questioned him about the parable, and he said to them, "Are you so lacking in understanding also? Do you not understand that whatever goes into a man from the outside cannot defile him, because it does not go into his heart, but goes into his stomach and is eliminated?" Now, for many of the Bibles out there, it's going to have this little addition that's been done to it. Here it says, "Thus he declared all foods clean." That is a lie. That is added in there by whoever was doing the translation of this. He did not declare all foods clean. See, that part right there, what's written in the Bible, from what I can see, that is the work of Satan. That is actually not part of the original manuscripts. So, moving on. And he was saying, "That which proceeds out of the man is what defiles the man. From within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things proceed from within and defile the man." So this is, kind of hitting two different chords here. You have to be genuine in your faith that comes from the heart, that comes from the inside out, not the outside in. But at the same time, it's the heart, what comes from the heart, what is legitimate. It's just like it says here, all of this evil comes out of the heart. That is what defiles a man. So do you see? You understand? Going into the book of Luke, chapter 6, starting in verse 46, says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and acts on them, I will show you whom he is like. He is like a man building his house, who dug deep and laid a foundation on the rock. And when the flood occurred, the torrent burst against that house and could not shake it, because it had been built well built. But the one who has heard and has not acted accordingly is like a man who built his house on the ground without any foundation. And the torrent burst against it, and immediately it collapsed, and the ruin of the house was great." So what's being said here is the teachings of Yeshua are the foundation in which our faith needs to be established. Not through our own thoughts or our own opinions, but what he has taught, what he is teaching us. We are not, remember, it's also written, we are not to be wise in our own eyes. We are to be led by the Spirit. Faith, we are not to have faith by sight alone, but by faith. Walk by faith and not by sight. Okay. So, after everything that's been discussed here, is your testament and your faith needs to come from your heart, in truth and in spirit, not just by words being spoken around. It's going to have to do with how you conduct yourself. How much are you praying? How much are you, stepping away from the distractions of this world? How are you treating people? How do you treat your family? How do you treat a stranger on the side of the road? Remember the parable of, I'm having a brain fart right now. Oh, the parable of the Good Samaritan. You need to think about things in that fashion, because you are not there to sit and judge other people. There's only one who's going to sit and judge. And by what measure you judge others, the same measure will be judged unto you. Remember, it says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Now, something I want to share with you before I move on to the very last thing here. The word lawlessness, it's worded differently in various translations, but lawlessness, essentially, it's under the Strong's Concordance, under the Greek, it's the G458. Lawlessness is to be without law, or wickedness. The condition of without law, because to ignore it, because of violating it, contempt and violation of the law, iniquity or wickedness. So, lawlessness, to be without law, to sin, and sin is transgression of the law. The other word for law that I find so miraculously that they keep putting out of Scripture, moving it around, is the Torah itself. So, if you want to look back at this, then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who are essentially not practicing Torah. Because that is where the law comes from. And we do not have the okay to not obey the law. And anyone who tells you anything different, all I'm going to say to you is this. If somebody were to come to me and try to convince me that we are saved by grace alone through our faith, and the law is done away with, it was nailed to the cross, which I've heard that said several times. Where does it say it was nailed to the cross? It doesn't. This, again, is the work of Satan. Lastly, enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. So, through the messages that I've put out, including this one, it says right here, for the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and many who find it, or few who will find it. The narrow gate. Believe in the Messiah. Follow his teachings, because he taught straight from the Torah. There was no gospels, no letter epistles, none of it during his ministry. He taught straight out of the Torah, the Tanakh, which is what people call the Old Testament. That's directly where he taught from. Believe in him. Follow the teachings of what's in the Torah. But don't do it from the point of thinking that you are going to earn your salvation through your works alone. It is impossible. It will not happen. If you try to do it that way, you're going to put yourself back under the curse of the law, which our Messiah's sacrifice freed us from slavery of being under the curse of the law. Yes, before the Messiah came, the law was a curse. Because no one could obey it fully. It was impossible. We are to have faith through our works. We cannot have works without faith, and faith with no works. Give me a second here. Okay, so if you want to sit here and say that there are no works, we're saved by grace and faith alone. Okay, going back into the book of Revelation, at the great white throne of judgment, I'm going to read this passage to you here. And I saw the dead, great and small. Oh, the dead, great and small. That right there, that's a discussion that's going to come up at a different time, and it's going to throw some people for a loop. Standing before the throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from the things which were written in the books according to their deeds. Let's see what deeds are. Let's see here. Business, employment, that which one is occupied, that which one undertakes to do, enterprise, undertaking, any product whatsoever, anything accomplished by hand, art, industry, or mind, the act of deed, thing done. The idea of working is emphasized in opinion. In OPP, I forgot what that means. To that which is less than work. See, works, deeds, work, deed, tasks. So you cannot do it strictly by saying you believe and that's it, and you produce no works. You're out of your mind. So with that, have a good evening, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.